Father Gabriel Santos stands on the Marcos Highway Bridge in Quezon City, Philippines. It is 11:45 at night on Christmas Eve 2018. His hands grip the cold metal railing. His feet balance on the lower horizontal bar. The dark water of the Maricana River flows 20 meters below. One more movement forward and he will fall. He is 38 years old, a Catholic priest ordained for 13 years, respected by his parishioners, trusted with their deepest struggles. Tonight, he has decided to die. 3 hours ago, he celebrated Christmas Eve Mass in front of 500 people. He preached eloquently about hope, about light shining in darkness, about God who enters human suffering. Families thanked him afterward. Children hugged his legs. Elderly parishioners pressed cash-filled envelopes into his hands as traditional Christmas gifts. He smiled, wished everyone Merry Christmas, and appeared completely normal. Then the church emptied. He walked to the rectory, removed his clerical collar, placed it on his desk next to a brief handwritten suicide note, took his car keys, and drove here, to this bridge he had selected months ago as the location where his life would end. Now he stands poised between existence and non-existence, breathing slowly, trying to gather the courage to let go. Traffic is light because of the holiday. Distant fireworks explode, celebrating the birth of Christ. He feels nothing except crushing exhaustion and the terrible certainty that continuing is impossible. His thoughts are simple, final. If you are there, God, do something. Show me a reason to stay. Otherwise, I am done. There is no thunder, no voice from heaven, no sudden vision or supernatural sign. Only the sound of distant celebrations, the hum of occasional traffic, and the dark water waiting below. He shifts his weight forward. His hands begin to release their grip. This is the moment. If someone watching this has ever stood on their own invisible bridge, feeling that faith is empty, that God has abandoned them, that ending everything is the only escape, stay until the end of this story. What happens in the next 90 seconds will challenge everything you think you know about divine intervention. Like this video right now so it can reach someone tonight who desperately needs it. As Father Gabriel prepares to push off the railing, his mind flashes back briefly to the morning of this day, waking at 6 o'clock in his small rectory room, knowing with terrible clarity that this would be his last day alive. The decision had brought strange calm after months of torment. Finally, there was an end point. Finally, the unbearable tension would end. He had gone through the day mechanically, celebrated morning mass, smiled at parishioners, reviewed preparations for evening liturgy, wrote the suicide note during a quiet moment in his room. Everything had proceeded according to plan. Get through Christmas Eve, Massachusetts, fulfill final obligation. Then disappear quietly before anyone could intervene. The plan had worked perfectly. He stands now at the edge, ready to execute the final step. But something is about to interrupt. As Father Gabriel's body weight shifts forward and his hands begin their final release of the railing, a sudden, piercing blast of a car horn shatters the silence. The sound comes from directly behind him, loud, sustained, jarring, followed immediately by the screech of tires braking hard on pavement. The noise shocks him out of his narrowed focus. Instinctively, without conscious decision, he pulls back and turns his head. A small, battered blue sedan has stopped abruptly in the lane closest to where he stands. Hazard lights begin flashing. The horn continues blaring for several more seconds. The momentum has been broken. The trance-like determination that carried him to this point has been disrupted by the sudden, violent return to external reality. For a moment, Father Gabriel considers ignoring the interruption and continuing immediately. But his body has already responded to the shock by stepping down slightly, and in that brief pause, something else enters his awareness. A small statue sits on the concrete ledge of the bridge railing, positioned almost directly in his line of sight, perhaps 2 meters to his left. He had not noticed it when he first approached. Now, illuminated by a street lamp and the headlights of the stopped car, it is impossible to ignore. It is a statue of the Virgin Mary, Simple, mass-produced, about 20 centimeters tall, made of plaster or cheap resin. It is painted in traditional colors: blue mantle over white robe, hands joined in prayer, face downcast in serene humility. The paint is badly weathered and chipped in several places, revealing gray material underneath. One hand has a visible crack. The base is stained with old candle wax. This is the type of statue sold in countless roadside stalls and religious goods shops throughout the Philippines. Thousands of Filipinos keep identical images on car dashboards, in home altars, in small shrines. It is ordinary, unremarkable, cheap. Yet in this moment, on this bridge, at this precise instant when Father Gabriel stands on the edge of death, it feels like a presence, quiet, patient, unspectacular, but undeniably there. His mind, even in its state of despair and psychological distortion, cannot help making connections. In Filipino Catholic culture, the Virgin Mary occupies central importance. She is invoked constantly, in rosaries prayed during wakes, in novenas before major feasts, in desperate promises made during crises. Images of Mary are everywhere, on jeepney dashboards, in corner store shrines, on walls of even the poorest homes. Father Gabriel himself has preached countless homilies about Mary's role as intercessor, the one who understands suffering, who never abandons those who call on her. He has encouraged desperate people to entrust their struggles to her maternal care. Memories flood back unbidden. His mother teaching him to pray the rosary during thunderstorms when he was a child, the beads moving through her work-worn fingers while lightning flashed outside their small house. The May crowning ceremonies of his youth, when he and other children carried flowers to place before Mary's statue in the parish church. His first Mass as a newly ordained priest, offered at a Marian shrine, when he had consecrated his priesthood to her protection. And now here, at his own moment of ultimate desperation, this small, weathered, damaged image sits on the bridge railing, positioned almost perfectly in his line of sight. Before the driver of the stopped car approaches him, Father Gabriel experiences something he would later struggle to articulate. Not a voice, not a vision, not anything dramatic or obviously supernatural. Rather, a sudden shift in interior atmosphere, a quiet but unmistakable awareness. You are being seen. You are known. You are not alone. It is the opposite of everything he has felt for months. The crushing isolation, the conviction that even God has abandoned him, the certainty that his suffering is invisible and meaningless, all of this is challenged by a simple, persistent interior recognition. Someone is here. Someone is watching. Someone cares. He steps down from the railing, his feet returning fully to solid concrete. As Father Gabriel stands with his hands still gripping the railing, processing what has just interrupted his suicide attempt, the driver of the stopped car opens her door and approaches him carefully. She is a woman in her late 60s, with gray hair tied back in a simple bun, wearing a worn but clean dress. Her face shows concern but not panic, as if she has encountered people in crisis before and knows that alarm could push them further toward danger. She speaks in Tagalog, her voice calm and gentle. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" Father Gabriel, still disoriented, nods mechanically without speaking. He wants her to leave. He wants to either continue with his plan or escape from this situation entirely. But something in her manner, neither judgmental nor intrusive, simply present, makes him hesitate. She does not approach closer. She stands several meters back, respecting his space, and explains why she stopped. Her name is Elena Cruz. She had been driving home from Antipolo, where she attended a late Christmas Eve service at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Peace and Good Voyage, one of the Philippines' most popular Marian pilgrimage sites. She explains that she makes this pilgrimage every Christmas Eve, a tradition she has maintained for over 40 years. Tonight, she left the shrine around 10:30 after Mass and began driving home to Quezon City along Marcos Highway. As she drove, she noticed a figure standing near the bridge railing, a lone person whose position and posture triggered alarm. She could not see details clearly, but something about the body language of someone either contemplating or preparing made her feel a strong, inexplicable urge to stop. She says this urge was not merely logical concern, though that was present. It was something stronger, more insistent, an interior push that felt, in her words, like someone telling me, "Stop the car now, don't pass by." So she hit her brakes hard and pulled over as close as possible. She turned on hazard lights and honked her horn to get the person's attention, hoping the interruption would provide at least a moment's pause in whatever was about to happen. As she tells this story, Father Gabriel finds himself listening despite his initial desire to be left alone. Her voice carries authenticity that is difficult to dismiss. She is not performing or dramatizing. She is simply explaining what happened. Then she gestures toward the small statue on the railing. "I see you were looking at that. It's funny, I used to have one just like it in my car." Father Gabriel's attention sharpens. He looks at her, then back at the statue. She continues, "For years, I kept a little image of Our Lady on my dashboard. Just like that one. Same size, same colors, bought from a vendor outside Quiapo Church. About 6 months ago, during a heavy rainstorm, I hit a pothole on this very highway and the statue flew off the dashboard. My window was open, stupid during rain, but it was so humid, and the image just went right out. I saw it happen in my mirror. I couldn't stop safely because traffic was bad, and by the time I could turn around to look for it, it was gone. I figured someone picked it up or it got crushed. I was sad to lose it, but I bought another one and moved on." She pauses, looking at the statue with evident surprise. "But now, seeing that one sitting there tonight, on this bridge, exactly where I lost mine, I wonder if it's the same one. How did it end up right there?" Father Gabriel stares at the small figure. The statistical probability of this specific statue being the same one she lost seems vanishingly small. Manila has millions of these images. They are mass-produced and ubiquitous. Yet the location is specific. This bridge, where she remembers losing hers. And the timing is impossible to ignore. Christmas Eve, at the exact moment when he stood on the edge, when she felt an urge to stop, when this image sat in his direct line of sight. Coincidence? Perhaps. Meaningless chance? Possibly. Or something else entirely. As Father Gabriel processes these impossibilities, his mind returns briefly to the question, how did he reach this bridge tonight? What brought a respected priest to the point of suicide? The answer lies in months of accumulated pain that he told no one about. For over a year, he had been experiencing symptoms he did not recognize as clinical depression. Persistent exhaustion unrelieved by rest, loss of interest in activities that once brought joy, chronic difficulty sleeping, feelings of worthlessness and guilt, and increasing thoughts about death. His prayer life had become mechanical. When he knelt before the tabernacle, he felt only emptiness, a vast, cold silence where God's presence used to feel close. He told himself this was normal spiritual dryness, that he simply needed to persevere faithfully. He did not recognize he was developing a medical condition requiring professional treatment. 2 specific traumas accelerated his descent. In 2016, a young parishioner named Carla, who seemed vibrant and faithful, committed suicide after a hidden struggle with depression. Father Gabriel had counseled her many times, yet completely missed how desperate she was. Her death left him with tormenting questions and crushing guilt. The following year, his closest friend from seminary left the priesthood, admitting he had been struggling in silence for years. Father Gabriel felt abandoned and secretly envious. Part of him wondered if leaving was the only escape from the pressure. But he stayed, bound by vows and duty, continuing to function while slowly dying inside. By December 2018, the Christmas season's intensity pushed him past his breaking point. Simbang Gabi, 9 consecutive dawn masses, meant waking at 3:30 each morning for weeks while maintaining full ministry schedules. He survived on coffee during the day and lay awake with racing thoughts at night despite physical exhaustion. During this period, a parish building project he had championed failed, and some parishioners publicly criticized him. A false rumor spread that he had mishandled donations. Though quickly disproven, It wounded him deeply. By December 23rd, he had made his decision. Get through Christmas Eve Mass, then disappear quietly. Elena's voice brings him back to the present. Can I drive you somewhere? Home. A hospital? You shouldn't be alone tonight. Father Gabriel finally speaks, his voice hoarse. I'm a priest. She looks surprised but not shocked. Then you know, she says quietly, that you are loved. No matter what you're feeling right now, no matter how dark it seems, you are loved. He cannot respond to this. But he also cannot deny the reality of the last few minutes. The horn, the statue, this woman's inexplicable decision to stop at precisely the moment he stood on the edge. He nods slowly. Take me to my parish. Santo Niño in Quezon City. She opens the car door and waits. As he walks toward it, he looks back one more time at the small statue still sitting on the railing. In the glow of streetlights, it looks utterly ordinary. Chipped paint, weathered surface, cheap materials. Yet somehow it had been positioned exactly where he needed to see it, exactly when he needed to see it. He gets into the car, and Elena drives him away from the bridge. The drive from Marcos Highway back to Santo Niño Parish takes 30 minutes through late-night Christmas Eve traffic. Elena does not force conversation. She simply drives carefully while soft Christmas music plays on the radio. Occasional fireworks still explode in the distance. Father Gabriel sits in the passenger seat, staring out the window at decorated houses, lit chapels, late-night revelers. Everything looks both familiar and alien, as if he is seeing Manila for the first time after a long absence. The psychological state that drove him to that bridge has not vanished. Depression does not disappear instantly. He still feels the weight, the exhaustion. But something has shifted slightly. A crack has appeared in the suffocating conviction that he was utterly alone and that death was the only escape. Elena breaks the silence gently. I don't know what you were planning on that bridge, Father. You don't have to tell me. But stopping tonight was the easiest decision I ever made. She pauses, then shares her own story. My husband died 8 years ago. Cancer. It was long and painful. After he died, I went through a time when I couldn't see any reason to keep going myself. I thought about ending it too. But people kept showing up at exactly the right moments. A neighbor bringing food. A friend calling. Small things, nothing dramatic. But enough to keep me here. And now I have grandchildren I adore and a life I'm grateful I didn't throw away. She continues, I think God works that way most of the time. Not with thunder from the sky, but with small interventions. A phone call. A stranger who stops on a bridge. Or maybe a little statue sitting exactly where someone needs to see it. Her words settle into Father Gabriel's exhausted mind. He is not ready to believe his life can be redeemed. But he is willing to consider there might be a path forward other than the one he had been pursuing. They arrive at Santo Niño Parish just after midnight. Elena pulls up to the rectory entrance. Will someone be here to look after you tonight? He nods. Yes. Other priests live here. Good. Don't be alone tonight. She pulls a small piece of paper from her purse and writes her phone number. If you start feeling that dark again, call someone. Call me. Any time. He takes the paper and puts it in his pocket. Thank you. You saved my life tonight. She smiles, eyes filling with tears. No, Father. I just honked a horn and gave you a ride. Someone else saved your life. He gets out and watches her drive away. Then he turns toward the rectory, takes a deep breath, and walks inside. As soon as he closes the door, he hears a voice. Gabriel? Is that you? Father June, the youngest priest in the parish, emerges from the common room holding coffee, looking surprised. Where have you been? Father Gabriel stands frozen. His emotional state is too fragile for lies. Something in his face communicates distress. because Father June's expression immediately shifts to serious concern. Gabriel, what happened? In that moment, Father Gabriel makes a decision as life-saving as the intervention on the bridge. He tells the truth. "I need to talk to someone," he says, voice breaking. "I need help." Father June sets down his coffee immediately and guides him to the common room. "Tell me everything." For the next hour, Father Gabriel pours out months of accumulated pain. He describes the depression consuming him, the spiritual dryness feeling like divine abandonment, the crushing expectations, the suicidal thoughts progressing from vague fantasies to detailed planning, and tonight's drive to the bridge with intention to jump. He describes standing on the railing, the car horn, the woman named Elena, the statue of Mary positioned impossibly in his line of sight, and the strange convergence of circumstances that interrupted his attempt. He confesses everything, revealing hidden truth and allowing himself to be seen fully, vulnerabilities and all. Father June listens without interrupting. When Gabriel finally finishes, emotionally exhausted, June speaks carefully. "First, I'm grateful you're here. Whatever happened on that bridge tonight, you're alive, and that matters more than anything else." He continues, "Second, what you're describing sounds like clinical depression. This isn't just spiritual struggle. This is a medical condition needing professional treatment. You need to see a doctor, probably a psychiatrist. You may need medication and therapy." Father Gabriel resists. "I'm a priest. I should handle this through prayer." June cuts him off firmly. "If you had diabetes, would you refuse insulin? Depression has biological components, brain chemistry, neurotransmitters. You can't overcome it through willpower alone. You need help." The idea that his suffering might be illness rather than spiritual failure opens a door Gabriel had kept closed. Perhaps needing treatment does not mean he is weak or faithless. "I don't know if I can continue being a priest," he admits. June considers this. "Those are important questions, but right now you're not in a state to make major decisions. Right now, your only job is to get well. Then, when you're healthier, you can discern with clarity." June makes Gabriel promise not to attempt suicide again without talking to someone first. Then he arranges for immediate leave of absence from ministry so Gabriel can focus entirely on recovery. They pray together briefly. Simple, honest words asking for strength and healing. Then June walks Gabriel to his room and promises to check on him in the morning. Alone, Father Gabriel lies in bed staring at the ceiling. He is still depressed. The weight has not vanished. But something has shifted. He is no longer alone with it. He has spoken truth aloud. He has accepted that he needs help. As dawn begins to break, he thinks about the small statue on the bridge, weathered and damaged but positioned exactly where he needed to see it. Whether miracle or coincidence, he no longer needs to definitively answer. What matters is that he is alive. Like and share this video now. Someone you know may be hours away from their own bridge moment. This story could be what keeps them here. Within 48 hours of Christmas Eve, Father Gabriel met with a psychologist specializing in clergy mental health. The assessment confirmed major depressive disorder, likely compounded by burnout and unresolved grief. The psychologist recommended cognitive behavioral therapy combined with psychiatric evaluation for possible medication. Father Gabriel initially resisted antidepressants, viewing them as evidence of spiritual weakness. But the psychiatrist explained patiently that depression has neurobiological components, disrupted neurotransmitter systems, altered brain chemistry. Medication would not replace faith or therapy but could help correct chemical imbalances, making it impossible to function normally. He began taking medication in early January 2019. Effects were not immediate. For 2 weeks he experienced side effects, nausea, fatigue, without noticeable mood improvement. His psychiatrist explained this was normal, that antidepressants typically take 4 to 6 weeks to show full benefit. But gradually, imperceptibly, changes occurred. The crushing weight lifted slightly. Intrusive thoughts about death became less frequent and less compelling. He could concentrate better, sleep more consistently, feel small moments of interest in activities that had been meaningless for months. He was not suddenly happy. Depression does not work that way, but he was functional again. He could think more clearly. He could imagine a future. Meanwhile, Monsignor Reyes granted him 6-month leave from active parish ministry. This decision, while necessary, was painful. He worried about disappointing parishioners, burdening other priests, causing rumors. But June and the psychologist insisted, rest was not optional. Healing required space. Father Gabriel spent the first month doing almost nothing. He slept long hours. He took walks. He sat in chapel praying wordlessly, not expecting consolation but simply being present. Slowly, his nervous system began calming from chronic hyperarousal. In February, he returned to Bulacan to stay with his mother. He told her a carefully edited version that he had been struggling with exhaustion and depression, had reached crisis point, was now in treatment. His mother responded with unexpected wisdom, revealing that his deceased father had also struggled with depression for much of his life but never sought help because of stigma. This revelation recontextualized Father Gabriel's childhood. His father's emotional distance had not been personal rejection but symptoms of untreated mental illness. Understanding this did not erase wounds but helped him see that his own struggle was not unique failure but part of larger patterns affecting his family for generations. Therapy continued throughout this period. His psychologist helped him identify cognitive distortions fueling his depression: all-or-nothing thinking, catastrophizing, excessive personalization of responsibility. He learned to challenge automatic thoughts and develop more balanced perspectives. He also began addressing underlying vulnerabilities: his tendency to derive self-worth entirely from achievement and approval, his inability to set healthy boundaries, his habit of suppressing emotions, and his belief that admitting need was weakness. In March, he attended a week-long retreat for priests in recovery at a Jesuit center. There he met other clergy who had faced similar struggles: depression, anxiety, addiction, burnout. Hearing their stories normalized his experience and reduced shame. One older priest who had attempted suicide 20 years earlier told him, "Your breakdown can become your breakthrough. The places where you were most broken can become the places where you're most able to heal others." By April 2019, Father Gabriel felt well enough to consider what his future might look like. Did he still have a priestly vocation? Should he return to parish ministry? These questions no longer filled him with panic. He approached them with curiosity rather than dread. Through prayer, spiritual direction, and discernment, he recognized that his vocation was intact but his understanding of priesthood needed transformation. He had been operating from a model rooted in performance, achievement, self-sufficiency. He needed to learn a different model, one rooted in vulnerability, interdependence, honest acknowledgement of limitations. In May, he met with his bishop to discuss next steps. The bishop was supportive and non-judgmental. Together they decided Gabriel would return to ministry gradually, starting with limited duties and clear boundaries. He would not return to the same high-pressure parish. Instead, he would be assigned to a smaller community with adequate staff support. The bishop also asked Gabriel to consider sharing his story when ready, to help reduce stigma around mental health in clergy. Gabriel agreed to think about it. On June 2, 2019, Father Gabriel celebrated his first public Mass since Christmas Eve. It was a small weekday liturgy attended by perhaps 20 people. Standing at the altar, holding bread and wine, speaking words of consecration, he felt something he had not felt in over a year: presence. Not ecstatic joy, not overwhelming consolation, but quiet, steady awareness of God with him. When he elevated the host and said, "This is my body, given up for you," he understood those words differently. They referred not just to Christ's sacrifice but to every person's call to self-gift, not self-destruction, but offering of authentic, vulnerable, limited humanity in service of others. After Mass, an elderly woman thanked him for his homily. She mentioned struggling with depression for years and feeling invisible in her suffering. Hearing him acknowledge that struggle from the pulpit gave her hope. Father Gabriel realized his experience, painful as it had been, was already becoming a source of healing for others. Over the following months, his new assignment proved sustainable. The smaller parish had manageable responsibilities and supportive team. He maintained strict boundaries, regular days off, annual retreats, saying no to demands beyond healthy limits. He continued therapy monthly and medication that kept depression well managed. He learned these practices were not signs of weakness but essential components of sustainable ministry. Most significantly, he began sharing his story publicly. First hesitantly, then with growing conviction, he spoke at seminaries, priests' convocations, lay conferences about his experience with depression and suicidal ideation. His willingness to speak openly helped countless other clergy recognize their own symptoms and seek treatment before reaching crisis. He also worked with a Catholic mental health organization providing counseling specifically for priests, religious, and their families. The organization operated a confidential helpline receiving hundreds of calls annually from ministers in crisis. Father Gabriel's story became part of training materials, demonstrating that even darkest moments can be survived and transformed. Father Gabriel's relationship with the Virgin Mary deepened in unexpected ways after Christmas Eve. He no longer viewed Marian devotion as mere pious practice but as recognition of real, active presence interceding in human affairs. He often returned in his mind to that moment on the bridge, the small, damaged statue positioned exactly where he needed to see it, and experienced gratitude that still moved him to tears. He maintained contact with Elena, the woman who stopped her car that night. They met occasionally for coffee, and he officiated at family events for her children and grandchildren. She insisted she was simply in the right place at the right time, but Father Gabriel knew better. Her decision to stop, prompted by interior urging she could not ignore, saved his life as surely as any medical intervention. The statue itself became something of pilgrimage point. After Father Gabriel's story became public through his advocacy work, people began visiting Marcos Highway Bridge looking for the image. It was still there, weathered and chipped, sitting on the concrete ledge where he had seen it. Eventually, someone placed it in a small protective shrine at the bridge entrance, where it remains today. People leave flowers and light candles there, praying for those who struggle with suicidal thoughts and asking Mary's intercession for mental health. The story attracted media attention. Local news covered it first, then national outlets, eventually international Catholic media. Headlines framed it as miracle story, as reconciliation of faith and mental health, as hope for struggling clergy. Some criticized Father Gabriel, saying priests should handle struggles privately, that public admission of mental illness damages church credibility. But many more, especially those who had experienced similar darkness, reached out to say his story gave them permission to seek help, that his honesty saved their lives. The Philippine Bishops' Conference took notice. In 2020, they established new protocols for clergy mental health screening and support. Seminaries began including mental health education in formation programs. Dioceses created confidential counseling services specifically for priests. Father Gabriel was invited to speak at the Bishops' Annual Assembly. He stood before the hierarchy of the Philippine Church and told his story: the depression, the bridge, the intervention, the recovery. He emphasized that faith does not prevent mental illness any more than it prevents physical illness, and that seeking professional help is not spiritual failure but wisdom. The bishops listened. Several approached him afterward privately to share their own struggles or thank him for giving voice to what many had experienced in silence. One elderly bishop wept, saying he had struggled with depression for 40 years but never felt he could admit it. Father Gabriel's testimony gave him courage to finally seek treatment. The cultural shift was slow but real. Conversations about mental health in Filipino Catholic communities became less stigmatized. Priests felt more able to acknowledge struggles. Lay people felt more comfortable seeking help without feeling they were failing in faith. Father Gabriel's advocacy extended beyond Catholic circles. He worked with secular mental health organizations, participated in World Mental Health Day events, collaborated with government programs addressing clergy wellness across religious traditions. He was particularly passionate about suicide prevention. He trained with crisis hotline organizations, learning how to recognize warning signs and intervene effectively. He spoke at schools and universities about mental health, always including his own story as testament that even desperate situations can be survived. As Father Gabriel's story spread, it raised inevitable questions about the nature of what happened on the bridge. Was it miracle? Coincidence? Divine intervention or fortunate accident? The Catholic Church has strict protocols for investigating claimed miracles. Most supernatural claims have natural explanations, and the Church prefers natural explanations when reasonable. Father Gabriel's experience was never submitted for official miraculous designation, nor did he seek such recognition. But examining the elements objectively reveals remarkable convergence. Elena Cruz felt a strong, inexplicable urge to stop her car at the exact moment Father Gabriel was about to jump. She could have driven past. She could have ignored the feeling. Instead, she obeyed an interior prompting she attributed to the Holy Spirit. The car horn broke Father Gabriel's momentum at the precise instant he was shifting weight forward. Seconds earlier or later might not have interrupted effectively. The timing was exact. The statue of Mary sat on the bridge railing in his direct line of sight, positioned so perfectly that he could not avoid seeing it once his attention was redirected. It had apparently been there for months, weathered by rain and sun, yet remained upright and visible. Elena's story about losing a similar statue at this location months earlier added another layer. The statistical probability of the same statue ending up positioned exactly where Father Gabriel would see it during his suicide attempt seems vanishingly small. Each element individually can be explained naturally, but together they form a pattern that challenges purely materialistic explanation. From theological perspective, this raises questions about how God acts in the world. Traditional Catholic teaching affirms that God can intervene directly in creation through miracles that suspend natural law. But Catholic theology also emphasizes that God typically works through secondary causes, natural events, human choices, ordinary circumstances arranged in extraordinary ways. Father Gabriel's experience fits this second model. No laws of physics were violated. No supernatural being appeared visibly. Instead, a woman felt prompted to stop, a horn sounded at the right moment, and a statue happened to be positioned where it was needed. Each element operated through natural means, yet their convergence produced outcome that saved a life. This understanding of providence, divine care expressed through arrangement of ordinary events, resonates with how many people experience God's action in their lives. Not through spectacular miracles, but through meaningful coincidences, timely encounters, inexplicable promptings that lead to crucial decisions. Father Gabriel himself moved from needing definitive answers about whether it was really miraculous to recognizing that the more important truth is simpler. He was saved. Whether through miracle or providence or fortunate accident, he received intervention exactly when he needed it. He often quotes St. Augustine when discussing this: "Miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature." Perhaps the categories of natural and supernatural are less distinct than modern thinking assumes. Perhaps grace works precisely through natural means, arranging circumstances in ways that reveal care and meaning. What matters practically is not theological classification but lived reality. People in crisis need intervention. Sometimes that intervention comes through professional treatment, sometimes through friends who call at the right moment, sometimes through strangers who stop on bridges, sometimes through small statues positioned where desperate people need to see them. Father Gabriel's advocacy focuses less on proving miracles than on encouraging people to be attentive to promptings that might save lives, the urge to call a friend, to check on a neighbor, to stop when something feels wrong. These ordinary human responses to interior promptings create the conditions for lives to be saved. If this story is reaching you at a moment when you need it most, share it now. Someone in your life may be silently struggling. This testimony could be the intervention that saves them. Like, share, and let this story reach as far as it needs to go. By 2021, Father Gabriel's story had created ripple effects far beyond what he imagined on that Christmas Eve in 2018. His decision to speak publicly about mental health struggles opened doors for conversations that had been suppressed for generations in Filipino Catholic culture. Other priests began sharing their own stories. At a national clergy gathering in 2021, over 50 priests publicly acknowledged struggling with depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions. Many credited Father Gabriel's testimony with giving them courage to seek help. Several admitted they had contemplated suicide but sought treatment instead because his story showed recovery was possible. The impact extended to seminarians. Formation programs began, including comprehensive mental health education. Candidates for priesthood received training in recognizing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and burnout in themselves and others. Seminaries established partnerships with mental health professionals to provide confidential counseling. Lay Catholics also responded powerfully. Thousands reached out to Father Gabriel through letters, emails, and social media, sharing their own experiences with mental illness and thanking him for reducing stigma. Many had struggled in silence for years, believing that admitting psychological struggle meant they lacked faith. His witness that depression and faith can coexist liberated them to seek help. Parish communities became more responsive to mental health needs. Some established support groups for people dealing with depression, anxiety, grief, and trauma. Others organized mental health awareness campaigns, inviting professionals to speak about treatment options and how faith communities can support those struggling. The Philippine Bishops' Conference issued pastoral guidelines in 2022 specifically addressing mental health in Catholic communities. The document, informed partly by Father Gabriel's advocacy, emphasized that seeking professional treatment is not opposed to faith but compatible with it, that psychological and spiritual dimensions of healing work together, and that church communities should be places of compassion rather than judgment for those struggling. Father Gabriel also worked with families affected by suicide. He participated in grief support groups, offering his unique perspective as someone who had stood on the edge himself and as a priest who had officiated at funerals of suicide victims. His presence brought comfort that conventional condolences could not provide. He understood both the spiritual questions families wrestled with and the psychological darkness that had overwhelmed their loved ones. One particularly moving encounter occurred in 2023. A mother whose teenage son had died by suicide 2 years earlier attended one of Father Gabriel's talks. Afterward, she approached him in tears. She had been consumed by guilt, wondering what she had missed, whether her faith had been inadequate, whether her son was damned. Father Gabriel spent an hour with her, explaining that her son's death was not her failure, that mental illness can overwhelm even the strongest faith, and that God's mercy extends to all who suffer, including those whose suffering ends tragically. She later wrote to him, "For 2 years I have been living in hell, believing my son was there too. Your words gave me the first peace I've felt since his death. Thank you for helping me believe again in God's mercy." Father Gabriel's advocacy also addressed systemic issues. He worked with legislators on mental health policy, testifying before congressional committees about the need for increased funding for psychiatric services, better insurance coverage for mental health treatment, and protections against discrimination based on mental health status. He collaborated with organizations addressing suicide prevention more broadly, participating in campaigns that distributed crisis helpline information, trained gatekeepers to recognize warning signs, and promoted responsible media coverage of suicide that did not sensationalize or romanticize it. His work earned recognition. In 2024, he received an award from the Philippine Psychiatric Association for his contributions to mental health advocacy. At the ceremony, he reminded the audience that awards were not the point. The only measure that matters is whether fewer people die by suicide because we created a culture where asking for help is not seen as weakness but as wisdom. 7 years have passed since Christmas Eve 2018. Today, in December 2025, Father Gabriel Santos is 45 years old and continues serving as a priest in the Archdiocese of Manila. His life looks significantly different than before his crisis. He works at a parish with manageable responsibilities and supportive team. He maintains strict boundaries around time and energy, regular days off, annual retreats, saying no to demands beyond healthy limits. He continues monthly therapy and medication that keeps depression well managed. These practices are not signs of weakness but essential components of sustainable ministry. Most significantly, he has become a leading voice for clergy mental health not just in the Philippines but internationally. He has been invited to speak at conferences in multiple countries, sharing his story and advocating for systemic changes in how religious institutions address psychological well-being of ministers. His relationship with the Virgin Mary has deepened beyond devotional practice into lived awareness of active presence. He often returns mentally to that moment on the bridge, the small statue positioned exactly where he needed to see it, and experiences gratitude that still moves him to tears. He maintains contact with Elena, the woman who stopped her car. They have become close friends. She attends Mass at his parish regularly, and he has officiated at weddings and baptisms for her extended family. Last year, when she was hospitalized for surgery, he visited daily. Their bond, forged in that desperate moment on a bridge, has deepened into genuine spiritual friendship. The statue itself continues drawing pilgrims to Marcos Highway Bridge. The small shrine housing the weathered image now includes a plaque, in memory of all who struggle with darkness. May they find hope. People leave flowers, light candles, and leave prayer intentions written on small pieces of paper tucked around the shrine. Father Gabriel visits the bridge every Christmas Eve. He stands at the spot where he once prepared to jump, looks at the shrine, and prays in gratitude for the intervention that saved his life. He prays for all who stand on similar edges, literal or metaphorical, asking that they too might experience grace of interruption, gift of one more day, and hope that healing is possible. Then he returns to his parish, celebrates Christmas Eve Mass, and proclaims the ancient message, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." This time, when he speaks those words, he knows from lived experience that they are true. He has been to the darkness. He has stood at the edge where light seemed completely extinguished. And he experienced that even there, especially there, light breaks through in unexpected ways. His preaching has been transformed by his experience. He no longer offers generic encouragements without acknowledging real complexity of suffering. He speaks honestly about darkness, about silence of God, about feeling abandoned. He also speaks about reality that faith does not prevent mental illness, that seeking professional help is wisdom not failure, and that church should be a place where vulnerability meets compassion. Parishioners respond with overwhelming gratitude. Many approach him privately to share their own struggles, expressing relief at finally hearing a priest acknowledge that faith and mental illness coexist, that prayer and medication are not contradictory, and that doubt and despair do not disqualify someone from God's love. Father Gabriel's understanding of priesthood has been fundamentally transformed. He used to believe effective ministry required strength, competence, appearing to have everything together. Now he understands true ministry flows from authenticity, vulnerability, and willingness to accompany others in struggle precisely because he knows what it means to struggle. He often reflects on theological meaning of his Christmas Eve crisis. In Christian tradition, Christmas celebrates incarnation, God becoming human, entering fully into limitations and vulnerabilities of created existence. Jesus was born not in palace but in stable, not with power but with fragility, not to conquer but to suffer alongside humanity. Father Gabriel's experience of being saved at his lowest point resonates with this mystery. He was not rescued because he was strong or faithful or deserving, but precisely in his weakness, doubt, desperation. Grace met him not despite brokenness but through it. He has come to see his survival and recovery as participation in paschal mystery, pattern of death and resurrection defining Christian existence. He died in sense on that bridge. The version of himself trying to manage everything through willpower and performance died that night. What emerged was something new. Self-grounded not in achievement but in belovedness, not in strength but in acknowledged limitation, not in self-sufficiency but in interdependence. This is the message he now carries. Resurrection is real, transformation is possible, even darkest night can give way to morning. Not easily, not quickly, not without struggle and support and grace, but truly. On this Christmas Eve 2025, as Father Gabriel prepares to celebrate Mass once again, he thinks about the journey from that bridge 7 years ago to this moment. He thinks about Elena, about the statue, about Father June who received his confession, about therapists and doctors who treated him, about countless people whose kindness sustained him through recovery. He thinks about all the people who have reached out since his story became public. Priests who sought treatment, lay people who found courage to ask for help, families who found consolation after losing loved ones to suicide. He thinks about policy changes, reduced stigma, lives saved. And he gives thanks. Not simplistic gratitude that minimizes suffering, but deep recognition that even terrible experiences can be transformed into sources of healing for others. As midnight approaches and he vests for Christmas Mass, he whispers a prayer. For all who struggle tonight with darkness, for all who stand on edges wondering if they can continue, for all who feel abandoned by God and humanity. He asks that they might receive what he received, an intervention, an interruption, a sign that they are not alone. Then he processes to the altar, looks out at the congregation, and begins, "The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all." And somewhere in the shadows of Metro Manila, on a bridge over a polluted river, a small weathered statue of Mary stands in a shrine, lit by votive candles, bearing silent witness to the mystery that grace finds us even in our darkest moments, especially in our darkest moments, and does not let us go.